controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
Okay. We are here with the man himself who's making me absolutely jacked as we speak. My trainer, personal coach, former powerlifter. Have I got that right? Yep. Paul Hynes. I'm always like, is it Hynes?
It's Hynes.
I never have to say your last name, so I'm always just like, I assume that's it. Yeah, we're going to talk about bodybuilding today.
Which isn't powerlifting.
Exactly.
Correct.
But I, formerly on an episode, had no idea there was a difference between them. I did not know bodybuilding was about aesthetic. I thought it was about muscles, which I guess it is.
No, it's about muscles, but it's like, oh, like who's the strongest?
Yeah, and so you're going to teach us about that right now because that's where I want to start because we didn't know the difference between them.
We fought.
Greg knew more than I did.
Well, no, I'm just like, bodybuilding to me is like these competitions that are absurd, and I just have been curious about how you win one if it's not about who's the strongest.
Yeah, so what is bodybuilding as a place to start off?
I mean, yes, it's an aesthetic competition first and foremost.
Okay.
So it's about how you look at the very core of it, but also how much muscle you're carrying, how symmetrical you are, like how symmetrical is your development overall. In other words, the gym bro who has very tiny legs and a big upper body would not win a bodybuilding competition because the judges are looking for, your proportions to be relatively even. You don't want too much development in one area that outshines another.
There's no strength component of bodybuilding?
No, you use strength to
like
build
to
your
get your
muscles.
body. Okay,
But on
you have
stage,
to be
they're not
strong.
asking you how much you deadlift or how much you squat or anything. And then they're also looking at conditioning. So how lean are you? In other words, how much definition is visible? And that's how the criteria is used to judge.
Okay. And
some
so,
subjectivity is
yeah,
involved,
like
and there's some controversy sometimes because like the person who's more conditioned doesn't win, and
right.
People on the internet get really upset. But
so does it come down to like just a handful of judges? Is that what bodybuilding usually is? Like there's a panel of X amount of judges that are looking at it, or is it like, does it depend on the competition? Or
there's multiple federations, but yeah, usually there's a number of judges. Like I think any competition, even in the Olympics, there's multiple judges that are judging the competitors, and then they all give their own individual rating, and then that person, it's usually 2 or 3 days, and then they get called back up to come on stage, and they compare that person to the other people who got called back.
Okay.
So if you get like another call out, as it's called, then that you're in good shape. If you don't get a call out, that means you're not coming back.
Okay. Then
like you auditioned and you didn't make the part, right?
Okay, but do they ever, with like measuring tape, go around a bicep?
No.
So it's purely what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And has that changed over time? Like I feel like we kind of chatted about this, and you like who decides? Is there a rubric? Like when you're bodybuilding, are people like, okay, I know I want my abs to look this way, so I need to exercise this way?
Yeah, like it's like, and is it like,
or how big do you want
pecs
your
worth
muscles?
more than like your arms?
Again, it depends on the federation, and it also depends on the type of competition. Like now they have bodybuilding, and then they'll have physique competitions where it's or men's physique or like women's physique, where like for the men they just wear board shorts, so they actually cover up their
because they're like,
why?
That's not
because it's not designed to be mostly about mass and like how big someone is. So if you look at the old school bodybuilders like Arnold. And like the era of Arnold, the era of pumping iron, right? Yeah, I can do more of that accent if you want.
Yeah, he works out. He does a good Arnold.
Milk is for babies. If you're a real man, you drink beer. Literally a quote from Pumping Iron. But and you look back at the bodybuilders in that era: Frank Zane, Serge Nubret, Franco Columbo.
Yeah,
there are heroes.
Google them if you're curious. Franco Columbo used to be the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, he did.
That's the actor. Because they couldn't green screen muscles back then. They had to have a guy that big.
Actual muscles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like you had no editing, right? So like, you had to get someone that jacked to be the Hulk.
And they painted him green?
Yeah, exactly.
That is so interesting.
Oh my God, alphabet energy.
Yeah.
But back then there was a different aesthetic, right? Their waists were much leaner. They could do the vacuum where you basically like pull your stomach in, and your rib cage is like showing. There wasn't as much focus on mass overall, like at all costs.
It wasn't about being as big as possible. It was more.
It was being able to suck in that weird look.
Yeah,
with the oil.
It's abdominal control. It's amazing,
which is cool. But also
is
freaky.
It?
It's freaky.
It's freaky.
You're not holding it for long periods of time, so it's. I mean, like any sport, this is not about health. Let's just be honest.
Oh, he's calling it a sport.
Well, I would. You're training for something and you're being judged on it.
Yeah,
Right? So
sport where you tan and put oil on you. Okay.
Oh my God, great.
Wait. No, I have another question. Is tanning part of it?
yeah, well, like they have to fake tan, and usually that's
so
to make the
fucking
muscle
weird.
definition show more, right? Because they're already pretty lean, right? They're already in single digit body fat by the time they step on stage, or at least they should be if they want to place well. And
They
then
want
they
to
go
get a call back. They better be single digit body
Exactly.
fat.
Well, you want your skin to be very thin, right? So then to have the muscle definition show even more, they'll have multiple layers of usually fake tan on, and they'll have someone usually helping them to contour it. So
I was gonna say, is that if it's fake tan, is that not like doping if all of a sudden you're drawing on the abs?
well, they're not drawing on the abs. The abs still exist.
Okay, sorry,
Right,
but I have
but,
a
like,
question.
are they emphasizing it
can
by
they
going, like,
emphasize with like paint? Or
So
no?
like,
is that like a no-no?
You've painted. I know. I've seen your paintings, right? Maybe you add some shading, let's say, but
Yeah.
the overall mass is still there.
Okay,
right?
but it's not like
you're
it's not
accentuating it. let's
You're
say.
like allowed to. It's not like if they find out you like added some like brown paint vibe to an ad that you get like kicked out.
no, you would. That I don't think I've heard of that happening. But again,
Because it's so weird because they are so tanned, and I'm like, is tanning actually help with muscle definition visually?
if you depending on how you layer it, sure. But I mean,
Wow.
again, like you can't fake how wide you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
or how pronounced your chest is, from a side view.
Yeah.
Or like even how big your arm is. Like that,
Right.
you're not going to be able to paint
Make
your
up
way
tan.
into.
Yeah. And actually, it's interesting though. Actually, tanning, I feel like would give you more muscle definition because if you have like divots in your body
Yeah.
or your
Yeah.
chest is big, you're gonna tan in different ways on those
Whoa.
spots that it probably
Yeah.
does bring out like that.
Think about, like-
that natural shading.
Next week, I'm just like Ariana Grande, fake tan. Hey.
You've gone through multiple stages from like red to brown to now. Okay, now I'm in my peak form.
So like it's just a physical visual competition
Yep.
where these judges judge and then there's no measurement. Are there different classes of people, like the smaller ones to the medium
Yeah.
to the biggest, and
Yeah.
then you win your like thing, like
Your division.
wrestling?
Yeah, so I don't know what the current weight classes are now because I think they've changed recently. But you'd have, from the 100s all the way up to the super heavy, which if I last recall was above 270 pounds.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And you can win your class, and then you can also win the overall. So if the judges,
Oh,
you get the highest
wow.
scoring basically based on the criteria that you're rating. You can win the overall. So that's a big deal if you do that because that means you beat not only everyone in your class,
Yeah.
but
like
all the
everyone
bodybuilders that were at
else.
that show.
And beat them because truly, like some people were like, "You look the hottest."
You look the most jacked, and we can see striations in your glutes. Yeah.
It's like,
Wow.
sounds pretty gay to me.
It's so gay. If it's guy on guy judge, it's so gay. But okay, also, is there a world where they're all getting ready in like the change room and they know that that's the guy that's going to win because he's the biggest? Or like, can someone go up there and like a peacock, like puff themselves so well? that
I mean,
they, like, win?
you do pump up backstage because
Like,
by
you
the
work
time
out?
you usually bring bands behind stage with you and you do a bunch of
Whoa.
arm and chest and back exercises, whatever, just drive more blood into the areas
right
that are going
before
to be more
you go
pronounced.
out.
Yep. And also before that, you're working dieting down to very low levels of carbohydrates usually so that you are as lean as possible. And then after you weigh in, you get to refeed, much like an MMA fighter would after they weigh in, where they get to take in some nutrients and start to rehydrate and rebuild that fullness in their muscles that will make them more
And have,
visible
like,
and
energy.
popping on
Okay.
stage.
So
And
your weight category is before that. You get as
You
light
weigh
as you
in,
possibly can.
you have to be inside your
Get
weight
out
class.
all your liquids.
Yeah.
Like go
Oh
to the
my God.
bathroom.
Peeing, taking big old dumperoonies that day.
Yeah, and then you pump
Then
up
you
backstage,
bulk up.
and yeah, sure. When you're backstage, you're looking around and you're seeing, I know that person because they're an up and comer, or I know that person because they won last time.
God.
Depending on who's there in your region, right? If you're at the Arnold, which is like one of the bigger
The main
competitions in North America, Arnold, then you're getting the best of the best.
Right.
Wow.
Those
North
people
America.
are
I
like,
need to watch that.
What I'm curious about is, okay, once you're there, is it easy to like choke on stage? Like, if you're like a figure skater, it's like you could be the best in the world, but if you fall,
Yeah.
you're not going to win
Yeah.
this
Like,
round.
you don't puff your tits big enough?
Yeah, or is it pretty much like, okay, if you're there at that
And
stage, you
you're-
already have what you have and you're just showing
a
it off.
good
So the
question.
only that's a good question. The only thing I could think of that would come into play is with the posing, because there is a competitive
way
aspect where you
to-
are side by side with however many people are in your class, and you get judged kind of comparatively.
Right.
And then there's also the solo act where you basically pose on stage and you incorporate a series of poses like most muscular where you're like flexing like this, or like a double bicep where you're flexing like this. And then the judges are just focused on you.
Right.
So that factors somewhat into the overall
Like you're
score.
building up points
but
through that.
You still got to be better than the other people.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah,
never
right.
judging hot face.
No, not
They're
that I
not
know
allowed.
of.
But
listen,
subjectively
I
they
wonder-
are.
do you
That'd
think
be-
they would admit that if they were?
Yeah, they're not admitting it, but if one of them's got a gorgeous
There should be a study
face-
on that to be like, is there a natural influence of how beautiful someone's face is that,
Or how
like,
symmetrical. What if
yeah,
their face is more symmetrical.
without the judges even necessarily realizing impacting their
Yeah,
their votes.
no, and that's true. And also like the like type of skin, because if you were black or you were white, people are like white tanning to try and get ahead. But if you're black, you're like, well, I can't like tan in the same way.
yeah,
They still put 10 on though.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. And I'm just like, there could be a lot of interesting sociological experiments about some racism going on in the bodybuilding community. That's true.
yeah, probably.
But like, oh man, I need to see the Arnold. Where do you go? I'm assuming
You
it's
have to
in,
go
like,
to
Texas.
Ohio, but you can.
Oh, Ohio, of
not
course.
that
You have to
far.
literally go. You can go on YouTube and just watch the highlights from people.
No, I want to be in person. I want to smell the fake tan.
Yeah.
And I want to smell the farts.
Oh.
Because you know that change room's going to smell like.
Well, you know,
what.
I already told you Greg is curious about this. 'cause
Yeah, I have a
Greg-
problem because I'm trying to gain muscle and I smell so bad. What do I do? What do I do?
Well, I mean,
Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I do know. I'm assuming you're talking about the byproduct or the side effect of a lot of whey protein or protein powder.
Yeah,
consumption.
it's
Is
not
that
even
the
whey.
main- is that the main?
It's just
culprit?
protein.
Well,
right?
let's use process of elimination. Was it happening before
Right.
you started taking?
I mean, he has always been fairly smelly. I
Okay,
will say.
whoa.
But
Drag
it's-
me to the core of the
it's-
earth.
It's definitely worse.
No, I'm
now.
trying to like eat
Last
more
night
protein.
I came home and
Yes.
was like,
It
something's
was bad.
wrong. in
Like
our
it was like
house.
sick. It was like truly. Yeah, last night it smelled like a really bad like restroom like at a gas station, like in our whole home. And I was hoping you were coming home half an hour later. So I was gonna open the door.
I was like, is something rotting or did you just fart a lot? And
Okay,
he was
so we know that it's like sulfur byproducts. So like there are lots of things that like I'm eating on top of just protein. Like I eat lots of like broccoli and eggs, and like
Yeah.
those create fart smells. But I am also like trying to like lift weights and eat a lot of protein.
yeah.
And I'm just like, is that?
I think he's eating too much. Do you want me to tell the number?
yeah.
Like,
Sometimes I eat like 170 to 200 grams of protein.
So
a day.
I mean, here's the thing. Right?
Everyone's
Like,
jaws are on the floor.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm about 225, and I aim for 200 plus grams a day. So
Wow, you must smell like shit.
no, but so here's the thing, right? Is like I think that like any kind of food sensitivity issue you're having, like doing a process of elimination to find out what are your
Yeah.
triggers is probably a valuable
true.
thing
Like
to
it might
do.
not
Yeah.
just be protein. It might be
Yeah.
some of
Something
the protein
else.
Yeah.
sources.
So I have
you're
to start
choosing.
taking things out. Although we did do an episode about my fart problem and realized like bananas do help, like certain types of carbohydrates. And I have not been eating bananas, and so I started putting them in my smoothie
Ugh,
today.
Yeah,
Because I
don't know.
realized I'm like maybe I
They're
need
like
to go
they're
back
like a
to that.
binding agent, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and they also just have like certain like
promote, like, bacteria that'll
biochemical.
break-
Yeah,
Yeah. I love
breakdowns.
bananas.
Yeah, so I
Fantastic.
think that maybe like I will say I have not been eating bananas.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try that before I process of eliminate.
So I'll tell a personal story. So I've found that depending on the brand, if we're going to talk specifically about protein powders, like I would use whey. Certain brands are worse than others, right?
for the fart.
Yeah, yeah, for the digestive system, right? When I used to work in construction, and I remember I was taking a weight gainer actually at the time, and
What's
that's
that?
a little bit different than protein in that
Oh.
it's much higher carbohydrate to protein
whey
ratio,
protein.
whereas
Okay.
usually protein powders are much more protein.
Yeah.
Versus the ratio of carbohydrates is pretty minimal. And I remember my boss at the time was in the front of the house, framing the house, and I was in the back. And he was like, well, I guess the Canadian government is doing some chemical testing. Like
Oh
it was
my
that bad. And this is like a 2-story house, you know,
Yeah.
in like
Oh
the
my
suburbs of
God.
Brampton. So, and I'm like, that was my cue. I need to stop taking this. Because you
Yeah.
know what? If it means that I have to eat a bit more food to
Right.
get the same caloric intake, I'd much rather do that and not kill anyone than
Yeah. and
So
have
that's
your
called
coworkers.
weight gainer.
weight gainer. Yeah.
So you get, do you buy it under the name weight gainer, or is it a type
yeah.
of protein powder?
No, it's
that just-
called weight gainer, and
Wow.
it's usually very high calorie per scoop. So
Whoa.
again, like
You're
with any
trying to, like,
supplement,
put on mass.
Yeah.
it's designed to help you supplement your diet, right? So my usual recommendation for like protein powders or powders in general is like maybe just don't have more than half your intake come from it.
Oh my God, no, that's
Yeah.
not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I hope not.
No,
like,
I know.
you
I'm
can
just
even
like
adjust that ratio,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So-
I'm
So
doing
some
one
people
scoop
like
a
maybe
day.
cross that threshold of
Yeah,
like
earlier.
half of their diet
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
more like protein powder.
But you eat 225 grams of protein a day.
No, I'll try to stay around there. Again, it's not an exact number because it's not like if you eat more protein, you're going to automatically build more muscle. Like
Right.
muscle is a very expensive, time-consuming process. It requires a lot of resources. So as long as you're within, 0.8 grams a kilogram of body weight, which is kind of the base level and universally agreed upon in the dietitian or nutrition world.
0.8 per kilogram.
Yeah, all the way up to I would go 1 gram or 1 gram per pound of body weight. But that's if you're someone who's like training,
Like really pushing.
You're really trying to gain muscle. Then that's the target that I'd say you aim for, and then you just make adjustments based on how you feel and how sensitive you are to like what you're taking in.
When you're trying to build muscle, and you're eating
This is a personal question.
1 pound per
Just asking for a friend.
For a friend. 1 pound of protein per pound. Wait, no, 1 gram of protein per pound.
Yeah.
How much should you be like weightlifting in minutes per day before you're just like not? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm doing like a 45-minute workout, like 5 days a week.
So
Is
okay,
that
so
bad?
let's.
Should I more?
I'll flip this question back on
Okay.
you, right? Is it the time spent in the gym, or is it the work that you're doing that matters within that time? That would,
Ooh, okay, that's a good point. Okay, it's good work. It's good work. I'm doing good work, but it's
like-
only like 45 minutes.
because what I mean is like people can get caught up in like it's like the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour
Right, getting
number.
too focused.
If I get 10,000 hours of this, that means I'm going to be an expert. And it's like maybe I don't know. So
Yeah.
just because you do 5 days a week of working out, I don't know what type of workout you're doing,
Wow,
what body
gotcha.
parts you're hitting,
Yeah.
how close you're taking your sets to failure, how much you're recovering between sets, how much sleep you get at home, what you're eating. Like there's a lot of other factors.
See, now
that go
I know
into
all this because he trains me.
Damn! I'm like, I need to know what those things
I'm
are.
kidding, I'm
I need to know what those things are.
No, you're Jack.
Do you go to failure?
Well, now I try to. It's my least favorite thing. But
Yeah.
I feel more
But he's
confident with
there
Paul.
to help you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm there to push him, right?
Yeah.
And there, for someone like Mitch, who historically,
Ooh, give us the good.
no, so historically, like you came from a place where you were using fitness initially to help like with your
my
back
back,
pain
yeah.
and with like your sensitivity overall.
Yeah.
And now, and I said this to you when you first started working with me, there's going to come a time when like we're going to go closer to failure on stuff and it's not going to be comfortable.
Right.
But that mechanical tension or getting closer to like when you cannot do another repetition is a part of like building muscle.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it all the time, but it is good to expose yourself to that every once in a while.
So you've done that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've done that.
No, I know, but I'm talking about you. I'm talking about
Well,
you.
now,
right
yeah, I feel like
Spotlight on
now
you.
I finally hit that point where I am like, I actually want to push myself more.
Yeah.
Because for so long, like, obviously I had all these back problems in the past.
And they did
then-
go away from
Oh my God,
exercise.
it's been and I like knock on freaking wood, but this is the longest I've ever gone without a back
I
incident.
know, it's amazing.
And even like when it's sometimes it might be like a little off, but it's so different now. Like it's just like a little off, and that's like the most I've had for like a year and a half, which is nice. But now I feel like finally I'm like, okay, that's gone long enough. Now I've been
Let's go to failure, bro.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, at a certain point, you're like, well, if I'm here, I might as well be like pushing myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to go back to not to bodybuilding, but clarify the difference of powerlifting.
Yeah, 'cause
and had
that's
you
what you did.
ever bodybuilded? like
Like a
Have I ever
competition.
stepped on stage in a Speedo and oiled
Right.
myself up? No.
Okay.
Oh, damn it.
I know. You can't find those videos because they don't exist.
I just
But
remembered the Speedo of it all.
Lifting, I'm assuming, then is about how much you can
Yes.
lift.
So in the world of strength sports, which if we'll call bodybuilding a sport, even if Greg doesn't want to, we'll throw it in there. Bodybuilding would be the one that's all about aesthetics and has a slight subjective bias based on who's judging. Whereas powerlifting would be literally about who can lift the most weight on 3 lifts. So
Like,
your back squat,
objectively.
your bench press, and your deadlift. And you either lift it or you don't. And there's criteria you still have to follow. In other words, for the squat, for example, you have to hit a certain depth.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
They
And,
kinda
and there's 3
measure it,
judges
or-
there watching to make sure that you do. Usually 2
Oh
on
my
the sides
God.
and
They're like
one in front
tennis
of you.
judges when the ball goes out, and they're just like,
Yeah. And there's no instant replay. There's no VAR.
Right, so
but
the
like,
judge-
Oh my God, would
Decides.
the instant replay be their ass? It
Just
would.
like
It would
in
be like,
slow-mo,
like
like-
slow mo.
probably be a side view. It's kind of hard to judge depth from behind. Just to be clear. Yeah.
But still, I would love the Olympics having to be like, look at that ass getting low.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't hit the line.
And then for bench press, you have to pause in your chest with the barbell sometimes until you hear a press command, and then lock out fully.
Oh, fuck.
And your butt has to stay on the bench. So if your butt rises off the bench, the judges
like
will
a
see that. That's a no
DQ.
lift.
Oh, man.
If you rack the bar before they say rack, then you also may miss the lift.
Wow, that's so stressful.
That is
And then for the deadlift,
nightmare.
the deadlift is the last lift of the day, and it's the simplest. You literally walk up to the bar. They're not going to cue you to when to pick it up. You just grab on, get tight, and then stand up, and then you have to lock out fully, and then they'll say down, and you can get called for if you hitch or like trying to basically
Right.
hop the bar up your legs, or if the bar goes back down and then comes back up. Like there's a lot of details that vary from federation to federation, but
Is
by
that
and large,
the Olympic one?
no. So that's
That's something else?
yeah.
Wait, so what was that one? That's
So that was powerlifting. So
powerlifting.
back squat on your back with the bar, sitting down and then standing back up, bench press, laying down on a bench, pressing the bar up after pausing in your chest, and then deadlift is bars on the floor, hip hinge, go down and stand up with it.
Done all those. How about you?
Yeah. I don't know. They're good exercises. And then Olympic lifting
Oh my god.
is the more is the celebrity cousin of powerlifting. In other words, you can do it on an international stage at the Olympics. Right.
So there's no powerlifting
No.
in the Olympics. It's
No.
just the one that they lift. Okay, explain that. You
So
lift over-
Olympic lifting is a 2-lift sport, right? Where you have the snatch, which is basically a wide grip on the barbell, starting in a squat on the floor.
Yeah.
You basically stand up, you extend explosively, and you throw the bar overhead and you usually catch it in a deep squat. You have to stand up with it until the judges say down, and then you put it down. And there's no eccentric or lowering component of lifts. Like that's why you see them
just
drop the bar
and then they just
versus
drop.
with powerlifting you don't do that.
you have to
You have to control it usually.
Oh, wow.
And then the clean and jerk, which is hands kind of in a deadlift grip on the bar, like right outside of your knees. You start in a deadlift position, stand up, catch it in what we call the front rack, like on your shoulders like that. And then you jerk the bar up into a locked out position. Judges say good as soon as you're standing still, and you come back down.
Do you have to be able to do both, or are they separate competitions?
No, you have to be able to do both.
It's like it's like one round is this, then one round is this, and
You
whoever
just snatches
average
first,
out.
gets the lighter of the 2 lifts, and then the clean and jerk.
That
comes
one's
after.
scary. And why is that the only one in the Olympics? Do you know, or it's just some weird like historical thing?
I honestly think that I don't know if there's any historical evidence as to why it's not, but I think powerlifting as a sport, they've both gone through multiple iterations historically. Like they used to have other lifts that were involved in Olympic lifting and powerlifting, and then they kind of phased them out. Or someone said it's like versions of the Bible. Someone's like, let's take this part out, and then like
They just decided, kind of
and then we're going to do
arbitrarily,
it this way, and then
Yeah.
you guys are all wrong because you do it this way, right?
Right,
Like
okay.
religion, for
right.
for lack of a better
it's like
comparison.
religion. It does just like
Yeah.
change, and everyone just like says it's one thing.
And then you have these
not
members over
whatever.
here which follow this
Yeah.
discipline, and then these
and they
ones over
hate
here.
the other people.
Yeah, so powerlifting is actually really, really bad for that. Like, not at the grassroots level. Like, you'll see local meets in Toronto and their surrounding area, which are very, very welcoming and very open. But like at the higher level, like everyone has their opinion about which is the best way to do the sport. Olympic lifting, you see less of that, right? So you'll see coaches who disagree with the approach by which you put someone on the podium in Olympic lifting. But I mean, if they're still producing a world champion, it doesn't really matter.
And
Right.
that one's like a little less subjective, certainly less subjective than the showing off my muscles with
Bodybuilding.
oil one.
Yeah,
But
they're
They're lifting things above their head, and if they can't, they can't.
And there's some subjectivity, like if you don't follow the guidelines for the lift, then you
Right.
can also get disqualified. But it's not about at all how you look.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
complete opposite from
from I
bodybuilding.
can't believe bodybuilding.
Can
is
you
just what I
describe
look.
what is the visual difference between like when someone's a great power lifter or Olympic lifter? Like, what do they look like? Because I don't really watch either of the sports. I can
Yeah.
picture a bodybuilder like doing the poses and obviously being really ripped. But I'm now
And
assuming
sucking
a
in their
power-
stomach. That's
I'm
so
assuming
visceral.
a power lifter will have like a much higher fat percentage, like not be.
Oh, yeah. They're not
focused
gonna be,
on
trim.
being shredded, but maybe just being bigger. Is that true?
So again, this kind of depends on what level you're looking at. If you're looking at beginner to intermediate who are just competing at local meets, you'll see a very wide range of body types there. Same for Olympic lifting, actually. So when I've competed or when I've taken my team to compete, they're usually, if it's their first time doing it and it's their first time competing in anything, they're actually very surprised at like how much body diversity there is, because
interesting.
as long as you can do the lifts,
Yeah.
you can do
Right.
it.
That's cool.
It's really cool. It's really actually quite inclusive versus bodybuilding, which takes like
Right.
a much higher level of discipline, a much longer
really
time frame to
specific
get
way
that
to
kind
do
of
it, yeah.
development where you can actually show it off. And there's just lower risk when you comes to powerlifting,
Yeah.
or even Olympic lifting, not from an injury perspective necessarily, but like from just how much work you have to put in to achieve a
see.
result. Right?
Even if like the moves seem dangerous to me, you're saying like bodybuilding requires so much different lead up. Are you saying it's more dangerous?
No, so I'm saying, well, actually, strength
more
sports in
risky?
general probably have the lowest injury rates of all physical activity.
Oh, I guess
so.
that's
Like
true, 'cause they're
lifting,
not having, like,
powerlifting, and
concussions and
bodybuilding,
stuff.
And
like,
it's not like in sport, like in soccer, like you can't predict what you're gonna do.
Right,
There's other
yeah.
people involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And figure skating, my God.
yeah.
Let's just chuck this person in the air.
Have them flip over 5 times and
Yeah,
then land
like
on one
it's
leg.
Hope they don't.
truly dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Not
it's
to mention
weak
microbes.
powerlifting. I love that. I'm gonna say that just like I'm glad I know that now. Oh yeah, well it's actually the lowest injury. It's the easiest.
I mean, all sports have their own challenges and drawbacks, right? I find it's one of the most accessible, right? So if you're someone, and I have a lot of people like this who has never competed in anything, right? And you're like, you start training, you start lifting weights, you're like, I like how this feels. I like something about it that's intrinsic to me. And then you maybe look at what can I do with it? And this is when I can come in and be like, I think you'd really enjoy this. Why don't you try it? And
Like
they
a
go to
competition.
and they go to a meet, they train for it, however long the time frame is between the meet and where they are now. And they go and you have to wear a singlet, so like a one piece,
hot.
Like a wrestler.
Sexy.
Like,
everyone has to wear it. Everyone has to wear
Okay,
it.
I'm
We're
literally
all the
gonna
same.
do this. I'm kidding. Imagine like for my brand. Oh, by the way, I'm actually also doing powerlifting competition.
I also know someone who did custom singlets for our team, so like,
Oh my
which was really,
God.
really fun
Yeah.
because like it's not comfortable wearing that.
Singlets are so hot.
Yeah, but everyone's wearing one, and then
Yeah.
you might as well look good
Yeah.
in something you want to look good
Every
in, right?
gay guy for Halloween's like, I'm a wrestler,
Yeah.
just so they can wear a goddamn
right,
singlet.
right, right.
Unbelievable.
It's like actually so annoying. You go to Halloween parties, like, oh, cool, yeah, you're a boxer. Hot take. Nice singlet. It is hot.
But you know what? It's like for people that, again, want the lower risk, right? They want something that they can visibly or, objectively say, I did that. I either lifted it or I didn't.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll win a prize, right? And maybe you'll have some good memories to walk away from after doing it. Even if you never do it again, you can say, you know what?
like,
I trained for something. I trained for a goal. I achieved that goal. And I think that's really, really valuable. Especially
Jack's
now.
version of marathon.
Yeah,
You know what I
pretty
mean?
much.
Like,
Totally.
kinda
It's like
like
that.
it's
without
accessible.
the band-aids in your nipples.
Yeah, without
Right.
band-aids on the nipple.
Oh my God.
Just
I don't
farts.
think I could. Do you think I could be a powerlifter?
Okay, that is like the best question. Like I'm gonna say
I
yes.
definitely think you guys
but
could.
deep
Yeah.
down, I'm like, that's not
I'm
what you
so
want.
bad at competition. Well, it actually just depends on what.
No,
kind.
you're so good at game competition.
Oh, I'm really good at games.
You're
for
really,
sure.
really good at games.
Yeah.
Really good.
Does he play games with you?
We went to one time. We did.
So we had a client social.
Oh my god! I
And,
thought you meant like
that-
playing games in the gym,
Snakes
like
latte.
literally like mind, like playing with his
In
mind. Like
between
I'm
sets.
actually not. That was actually only my second
we
round.
do chess squatting, which is the like chess boxing. So he squats for one set and then he makes a move and then I make my move.
We should do that.
Yeah.
No, but I feel like under the pressure of I like games that you can have more time to strategize and think, and I feel like something that requires like this pressure on this literal 10
Yeah.
seconds, I feel like I would cave
Oh,
under. Like
I
I
see.
definitely psych myself out a
You
lot.
do have 3 attempts, right? So in
Okay.
all of these, you do have 3 attempts.
Mitch, you a power
Right?
lifter.
And usually what I tell people is, and this is very common advice, is your first attempt should be something that you can do, like your first single, because you're only lifting it for one time, but you're doing 3 attempts.
Okay.
Your first attempt should always be something you can do, like on your worst
home.
training day. Like you slept 4 hours.
Yeah, okay.
You have diarrhea, and
So
then
you
you
get
could
that
still come in the gym and
confidence.
yeah, you build your confidence because you also don't want to bomb your first lift, and then you're like, well, I didn't make that one, so now my second one's not going to go well.
Yeah.
Right. And then you build from there. And
But what do you mean because isn't the weight that you lift gonna make you lose if you can't do enough weight, or is it also how you do it? Like,
I mean, there is how you do it in terms of like the hitting depth on the squat
Yeah.
and adhering to the judge's
oh, you can
commands.
just go to a competition, you can still like compete.
So I would tell people you're competing against yourself. Yes, there's a roster of lifters you're going to be in a flight with, which is what it's called. It's basically the order of who's going first based on the lift that they're doing, the weight on the bar. But again, at the same time, you're only you're competing against your last lifts.
Yeah,
right?
like
At the end of the
you're not
day,
trying to necessarily get to the
unless
level
you
at
have competitive aspirations where you're like, I want to go to a national level meet, or like
Gotcha.
IPF, which is International Powerlifting Federation, which you can go somewhere, usually in Europe, and be judged with a really strict standard against people from all over the world. But again, that's the 1% of
Right.
powerlifting.
So it's like I can do it. I might get last place, but I did it.
Yeah.
Now
And-
that's fun.
and you know what? Like, honestly, that's one of people's biggest hangups with the sport is like, well, what if I come last? What if I'm the weakest
Yeah.
one? What if I'm squatting only the bar? I'm like, it literally doesn't matter.
Right, like-
because I've been at meets where like there's someone there who has a 5-pound plate on either side of the bar, and the
I love
audience is
that.
screaming for them to like, come
Oh
on,
my
get
god,
it
that
up.
is so
love
cute.
that.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna cry.
cry. That's Disney.
Yeah,
That
and
should be a movie.
because it doesn't matter. It's like effort is effort.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
sure.
and,
my
and, and your
God.
struggle is your
Or
struggle,
your
and people
best.
can empathize with like you really worked hard at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
you know,
my
I'm getting
God.
tingles just saying this.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
obsessed
literally
with
tearing up.
powerlifting.
And it's really that's why again I think it's very very it's a very inclusive or democratic, if you want to use that term, sport. Where you can go and be celebrated based on your effort, not compared to someone else, unless you choose to
be
try to
hyper-competitive
you know,
about,
medal
like, yeah.
or get at the higher level. But for people doing their first meets, I don't even put that on the radar. I'm like, just go do your
Do it
best.
for
Oh my god,
yourself.
I can lift 5 pounds on each side. I should just go do that.
Yeah.
You should. Just be like, and like really dramatic, like, oh,
and then put it on TikTok and
Yeah.
and go viral.
yeah.
Question. In your view, is like powerlifting or Olympic lifting, quote unquote, healthy? You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about fitness, and obviously like there's so many studies that show like lifting weights is like really good for you. The cardio is really good for you. Is this a type of modification that's not really about health? It's about like just pushing yourself to the limit, which obviously even like marathons could arguably be not that healthy for you because you're
Yeah.
putting a lot of strain on your muscles.
So, again, I would just reframe that question. When are you most likely to see negative effects from doing something that's supposedly health promoting when you take it to an extreme? So if you're an elite level powerlifter and you're pushing your body to put loads on yourself that, you know, most people in their lifetime will not ever touch, there's health drawbacks from that,
Right.
right?
Like
If you're
there
going to be a
risks.
competitive runner, there's health drawbacks from that, right? And if you're going to be a competitive figure skater, hockey player, you know, MMA fighter, like getting punched
Football player.
getting punched in the head is not healthy.
Right.
You know, football player definitely
It's like,
100%.
CTE
CTE is very real.
Serious issues. I would
Yeah.
never wish on my
Concussions,
kid.
And so
being a
I
football
think
player.
it all depends. Like, is the action of lifting weights healthy as a basic statement? Sure. But like anything, you can have, I don't want to say an abuse of it, but it's kind of like, for lack of a better term, that like you can take it to that extreme where
Right.
it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
Just like you can, you know,
Basically
eat
take
more
any
healthy
healthy
to
thing. Yeah.
to improve your body and your overall health and well-being, or you can take it to extreme and go
Right.
into like eating disorder territory.
Yeah.
Is it the action of eating healthy that's the problem, or is it like how far
Like
you
yeah.
take it, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
that's
Okay.
that's the best way I can kind of phrase that, because like, you know, you have people who had never touched weight before and start lifting, like, wow, I feel so much better. They notice all these
Yeah.
health improvements. Like my doctor said my bone density is better.
Yeah, I was gonna be
you know.
like, good for the bones.
Yeah, my mood is better, my focus is better, and like anything, like great, keep
Yeah.
going, right? If you want to take that to another level, there's maybe some drawbacks from that to that, and there's
Yeah.
always trade-offs with everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out one of my little studies now. We've been having so much fun talking about it. It was just about, it came out last month, and it was like, oh god, I don't know how to use a
Powerlifting
frickin'
is
tablet.
bad.
I'm kidding. Imagine.
That would be the journalist's title on the
Yeah,
the
pop
news article.
science, like, powerlifting takes 5 years off your life.
Yeah.
So obviously we know like exercise is healthy and strength training is healthy. Like it's not like this is groundbreaking, but it was over 3 decades, hundreds of thousands of people between the ages of 18 to 97. This came out last month.
97 hot.
Yeah,
That's an amazing longitudinal study.
Yeah, huge. And ultimately, they found that muscle strengthening lowers the risk of death from all causes, including cancer and heart disease. I love when they say all causes because you're like, from getting hit by a car?
Yeah.
But all natural
Well,
causes.
yeah, you stop the
But,
car with
but
your
I mean,
brute strength.
hey,
Actually,
I've heard
probably,
stories of people
like-
who are like on their bicycle or
True.
motorbike, they get hit after literally coming from the gym. Like I think of one story in particular, and yeah, they had to go get surgery. They had broken bones and stuff, but they
If-
like recovered.
Yeah, maybe your recovery is
Right?
higher if you're.
yeah, you're more durable.
So
That's
this
interesting.
Right.
This study was trying to specifically find like a quote unquote dose, because that's never been
yeah.
quantified before.
A dose of strength
exercise
training?
of exercise, basically.
Oh, okay.
And what they found was that 30 to 60 minutes a week of activities like lift weighting or push-ups or heavy gardening brought about the
Yeah.
like up to 20% chance decrease in dying from all causes.
Wait, 30 to 60 minutes a week?
a week, that's it.
Wow.
So basically they were just trying to be like, after that there are improvements, but they call it a J curve, so it just like
Yeah.
doesn't
The ROI
for the average
decreases
person
the
it's
longer-
like
the more
60
you do it.
minutes
Say
if you can do
heavy
that.
gardening.
Heavy gardening was one of them.
I'm obsessed. Science is like such a nerdy territory because like truly they're always like, do you realize gardening's the best thing for your goddamn health? Like that's always said, and I'm like, I think that's like
Well, because you're with
nerd
plants
bias
and you're
yeah,
moving
no, I know,
and-
and whenever I do garden, I'm like, this is hard, but I'm like, there's a lot of other things like like
Oh, they gave more
cleaning.
examples. There was like carrying grocery bags
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
yoga
yeah.
and like
You just start going into no frills and taking other
Yeah.
people's bags and like
Yeah.
walking to their car.
Honestly.
I got that for you.
But gardening is like an aerobic exercise, but I'm also sometimes I'm like, it's like a bad one for if you don't do it right, you're bending over wrong. It's just like a
That's
weird
true.
thing that
You
people
can
choose,
injure yourself from it.
or like a lot of studies choose. out
Sometimes
of
my
all
back
the
hurts
things.
after I
Yeah, you have to
garden.
crouch down.
That was just strength training, and then they said in the study when they combined aerobic exercise, that risk dropped by 40%. And I thought that was amazing. Like obviously we all know it's healthy, like good for you, but it is cool to be like, okay, we can see.
Yeah, the more studies to like make you remember why you're goddamn doing it.
Yeah. And I had a different, so unless you have something else you want to say.
No,
on that note.
I mean that's awesome. I think my biggest takeaway that I get from that is what the minimum effective dose can look like, right? Because I think people can have this idea that if
like I
you
need to
are
go
not,
every day.
if you are not training 5 days a week, well then it's pointless.
Not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen posts online from people basically downplaying the effect of exercise if you are someone who sits, for a certain amount of time per day.
Then it's like not worth it.
But when you look at the
almost.
research, it doesn't actually support that idea.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
even if you are sitting or in a sedentary job for 8 hours a day, you're still
Or
better
workout.
off exercising versus not exercising.
Totally.
So we
Yeah.
want to get more people moving and more people finding ways to move that are meaningful to them. And if that study is basically looking at over a very long time frame, you only need 30 to 60 minutes and you
Yeah.
can see this massive marked health improvement, but also like maybe you won't die earlier
Yeah.
or from different causes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we need more of.
That is
right?
true. It's
I
nice
mean,
that it's not that much.
it's part of that accessibility piece that I really do try to get across to people, where like something is literally better than nothing. Like you can, if you can't do an hour workout, cool, do 30 minutes. You can't do 30 minutes, go for a 10-minute walk. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about long, like lasting behaviors that are done sustainably over time.
Yeah, like
and you
for
can
the rest of
always
your life.
scale it up. Like
Yeah.
you can always do more.
Yeah.
But oftentimes for people, the hardest part is getting started. And so if you can make that first rung on the ladder like very, very accessible,
Yeah.
then well, guess what? They're going to feel more motivated. Like, oh, I can do that. Okay, and I get benefits from that. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like that. So that's what stuck out to me about that.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
that.
true.
You don't have to, because it can feel overwhelming. You're right. When most people, because I feel like in most people's minds, at least mine, when I started, it felt like if I was doing anything less than 3 days a week, it was kind of like, is it doing
Yeah.
anything? But knowing mentally, like, of course it's still doing something, but you kind of get this in your head, like, oh, you want to commit to something, but then it becomes overwhelming when you're like,
and it does take a long time.
yeah. And at the beginning, your body hurts so much that you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do another one at the beginning, you know?
And like also going to the gym, it's like you always just like go to a space where there's someone who's just like so jacked.
Yeah.
Like there's always someone at a gym that you're like comparing yourself
just
to,
like,
and you're like, I come here
how
a
do I get
lot, but like,
there?
why
Yeah.
the hell don't I look like that?
Yeah.
And like you don't get to see how
long they've
much
been doing it
they're-
for.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
long they've been doing it, like what they're eating, like.
And also,
Yeah.
if you're, if you're really, really sore right out of the gate, like all the time, maybe the dosage of stuff you're doing needs to be adjusted.
Dial it back a little.
Right?
at
Because
first.
soreness is largely related to novelty.
I love the soreness. Though.
Yeah.
But like at the
Unless you really like it, in which case just keep
Yeah.
doing
I
it.
Sure,
love
but-
it. It's
but
like,
do you-
oh yeah, because it's like I'm gonna eat my shreddy
now,
steak and earn it.
now I like it to a degree, but there's times when I'm like too sore and I'm like,
I love it.
if I can't sit down on the toilet, I'm like, okay, that's
I
a little too
love
sore.
that.
I do
Wait,
not
that's
like
so
that.
funny. I literally love it because it's just a sign that I did something.
No, I know it's true. I have distinct memories from starting though, like
Yeah.
even before meeting you, like
Yeah.
where I would work out probably way too hard, and for a week I couldn't
Yeah.
work out again.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So it was
not-
like
yeah.
so much that you're
Yeah.
just like walking in pain.
There's like,
Yeah.
typical DOMs or delayed onset muscle soreness.
DOMs?
DOMs.
Speaking of guys,
What's
like,
that mean?
Doms.
Oh, DOMs.
Delayed onset
Yeah.
muscle soreness.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
thought you meant like Dom top. That's a gay thing. Delayed onset muscle soreness. I know.
where like it typically peaks about 48 hours after about
Yeah.
exercise. But usually, again, it's dependent on how new or different is it from what you did before.
Yeah.
So if you haven't trained in a while and then you go really, really hard, I'm not surprised you're sore for 7 days.
So DOMS is 48 hours for reals.
It usually peaks at that, but again,
Yeah.
it can really it purely depends on how much volume of work you did relative to how often you've been exposed to that in the past.
Because like,
right?
yeah, my trainer, I'm always like, the next day I'll be like, oh, my butt hurts. And he's like, he always is like, wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, okay, like, is that real? It's like, oh, okay. He's
noticed
reading his
that.
DOM
Yeah,
studies.
Oh, it was the second day.
Yeah, usually
Feel
peaks
the
around there.
most.
Again, it's very individual, but that's
Yeah.
typically the average.
Yeah, he always says that. I'm like, is that true? And now I'm like, it probably
And
is.
now it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So like,
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
you're mentally
The
waiting
48
for it.
hours when DOMs are the worst.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to bring up, because you are a trainer and a coach, was this study was specifically on men and motivation for going to the gym. But what it found was that like a lot of men will give explicit reasons for going to the gym to like be healthy or whatever, but implicitly they found that a lot of them had fears of body fat as opposed to having like positive affirmative like a lot of people, it said, in particular, spontaneous gym goers are more likely to be motivated by guilt, shame, or pressure. And I was curious, like as a trainer, how you kind of like evaluate what someone's. Obviously, there's no wrong reason to try and get fit, but obviously, if you are going because you're guilty or feeling bad about yourself, maybe that's like less sustainable or not the right
And I
reason.
feel like I have, like when I started with my old trainer, I was like, to have a healthier attituve towards life and to be
Yeah,
mentally
like,
clear.
I
But
wanna
in my
be
head, I was like,
jacked.
girl, I want to get jacked for the summer. Yeah.
I want a bigger butt.
Yeah, like I literally, I eventually said that like after like 2 weeks. I was like, nah, I just
I've
want the
told
biggest
Paul-
ass.
Can I just be honest with you? This is really what I wanted.
yeah. What, that I want a big ass?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I told my trainer that, and then he stopped working out like everything else. Now I had to be like, okay, I want a big ass, but
Okay,
like
okay,
not
okay,
at the cost. Yeah,
Roll it back. I still care about the rest of my body.
Yeah, but it was like so funny. I was like, are we gonna do something else? And I was like, my ass always hurt. But okay, yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so yeah, if you're looking at the motivations for people like when they first come in, obviously like, and I tell people this when you're meeting me for the first time or you're meeting a trainer in general, that's a pretty vulnerable like thing
Yeah,
you're doing, right? You're coming into a space that may not be comfortable for you. You're meeting a complete stranger, even if you have read their blog or whatever beforehand, and you're talking to them about like some things that are pretty intrinsic and maybe delicate, right? Like you're not happy with some aspect of who you are. Or something about yourself, and you're like hoping that this person can like help you achieve that or change that, right?
Yeah.
That I don't expect anyone to like tell me all
Right,
the
their
deep,
insecurities
dark
or-
rationales as to
Yeah.
what they really want to accomplish from
Yeah.
training on the first conversation. I don't expect that to happen after like a few weeks or months because
Yeah.
it's ultimately a relationship, right? Like, you know, we're getting to know each other. You're learning to trust me, and I'm learning more about you, and then I'm helping you basically helping find the right dosage and the right amount of this stuff that works for you. You know, keeps you engaged, keeps you focused. What kind of cues work for you, right? And then over time, you might divulge like a little bit more information and be like, you know what, I want to try this.
I do just want to hunk an ass.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes the goals change,
Yeah.
right? And so people can come in and not have very clearly defined goals in the beginning, and then after, you know, seeing like, oh, you know what, I've been consistent at this. I've never been consistent at anything. Like, I wonder what else I can achieve.
Yeah.
And
like me.
And I do agree though. There is a bit of a almost a stigma or stigma is maybe the right word. There's something wrong with like wanting to look better.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, I
feel that
agree.
all the time.
Yeah.
And so I
lie.
and it's
Yeah,
and it's
but-
not even
You know, I
not
wouldn't
even
mind if a byproduct
Yeah.
I look better, but it's not what I want.
and that's usually
Yeah.
that's usually what they say.
not what I really
Yeah.
want.
And it's not even women only. They're saying this. It's men.
like- yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they'll make it very clear. Like, I don't want. Like you've even said this.
Oh, totally.
I don't want to be like a bodybuilder or anything. I just want to feel a bit better. And I'm like, but you wouldn't mind
I wouldn't
having
mind.
bigger
I wouldn't
biceps, would
mind.
you? Right? Like. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, muscles can hypertrophy. Like, we know this. If that's a byproduct of your training, even though that wasn't expressly your goal from the beginning, that's cool. There's no shame in that. But like you said, like, no one. I don't think there's any reason why you should tell someone your goals are not worthwhile because maybe their goals are different than yours, or you have a different focus for why you do fitness versus them. Like, again, the point is to get more people moving in whatever way that keeps them motivated. If it's like looking hot, cool.
Right.
As long as
Yeah.
you're not doing anything that's, again, too extreme and putting you at risk, or it's, you know, triggering, or it takes you to a place that is just not sustainable mentally. that's fine. Like,
So is body dysmorphia? What is that? Now I'm like, we should do an episode on body dysmorphia.
Yeah, you should write that
'Cause,
down.
Like, I will write that.
well,
down.
I think
'Cause
in
that's
general, yeah.
when you don't.
A lot of gay men in particular, I think, suffer with body dysmorphia, but I wouldn't be surprised if just tons of people do, especially in today's world with social media.
Because
and
it's
seeing
not
so many.
feeling like your body's adequate or I mean, we just need to
Maybe
do an
like
episode on
always
it.
feeling like you never are the body you want to be, or like
you're
even
never good enough?
Even people who
Yeah.
have like from our eyes like beautiful bodies
Yeah.
being like, no, but I'm not where I
Yeah,
want to be.
yeah.
Like I feel flubby. I feel like I have too
Yeah.
much or not big enough muscles. Like that objective disconnect between being like, no,
Yeah.
you are really fit and you don't think you are,
Yeah.
or even not really fit. Like I don't know.
yeah, I mean, but again, so much this is subjective. You
Yeah.
know, like it's like telling someone who's depressed, like, no, you should be happy. You have so many
Right.
things that are going well in your life.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't work. Like, and that's not even helpful.
Yeah, and body dysmorphia is likely probably a part of like another mental health issue. Like it's maybe
Yeah.
one aspect of like a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm literally gonna write that, or I'll do it after because I'm like that is so interesting because I do think it is a separate conversation.
That's a
related.
big topic.
Yeah,
That's a big topic.
And I know people talk about it a lot and they throw the word around a lot and
Yeah.
make jokes. A lot of
Yeah,
people go, "Oh,
obviously-
I have body dysmorphia," and like we all laugh. Like, and it's like sometimes I'm like, "Wait, do you?" Or like because it's like
Yeah.
not
It's like-
taken as seriously necessarily.
Well, it's something you can't
It's
see.
like saying I'm depressed,
Yeah.
but then it's like, well, are you clinically depressed or are you just like?
And I don't want to like
feeling
downplay
depressed,
it,
right?
but it's like sometimes we're all like, "Ha, body dysmorphia," and in my head I'm
Right.
like, "Wait, is that?"
Yeah,
fine?
and there's a whole thing of what you can't see is still very real for the person that's describing it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, again, this just goes back to like you have to be honest with yourself about what your motivations are for doing this. You have to also be open to maybe getting feedback from people, like let you know that how you're progressing or how you're doing in relation to your goals. And then you have to also be self-aware enough to be like, you know what, this is actually taking more away from me than it is giving me.
Yeah.
And again, this is a like insanely broad topic, and there's a lot of nuance in there, and I think it's tough to cover in social media, and that's why I think you see people throw out the terms and don't actually go into like what does it actually mean if you are dealing with that, and it's just not something like. You know, you can just say, "Oh, I'm so ADD." It's like, no. Like, like you can say that, but like,
There's a lot more meaning behind what
Yeah.
that
and there's
represent.
if you've been clinically diagnosed versus if you have trouble focusing. Like, there's a
Yeah.
very big difference
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Me and Mitch do this thing where we try and like, maybe I just do this fish for compliments. I'll be like topless, like my shoulder's
Greg does.
skinny, and then Mitch is
Literally
like,
last night
shut
we-
up. I'm like, oh wait, what? It looks big.
Every night we do like this game gets played.
But you do it too.
No, I do
Yes,
not.
you do. You're lying through your goddamn teeth.
Okay, fine. I think
You'll
everyone
be
knows
like,
it.
oh my god, it's not working. I'm looking smaller, and then I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, you look so much bigger and jacked. Like we do it all the time, and it's like
so
sad.
I've talked about this with Mitch quite a few times, and like I think one of the best ways to kind of reduce the noise in terms of like how you see yourself, because our eyes are not trustworthy in a lot of these cases, right? And we know that how your body looks is going to fluctuate day to day.
Yeah.
How much you've eaten, how often you go to the bathroom, have you worked out or not? Are you in a warm climate versus a cold climate? Like
Yeah.
what time of day is it? And so this is where like having some more objective measures to compare
to actually
like
know.
photos or measurements, as long as it's something that's again not triggering or doesn't put you in a negative mental spiral.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Having that data to go back to and actually be like, you know what? I may feel like I'm small today, but compared to 6 months ago, look at the progress I've made.
Objectively, I am big.
Wow,
It's
I've never
no
thought about how like that is
Yeah.
important.
It's no
Because
different
like-
than if someone's like, I'm not making progress on my lift. Like I'm not lifting more this week than I was last week. I'm like, yeah, but if you go back 6 months,
Yeah.
when you're only squatting 25 pounds and they're squatting 300,
Yeah.
or, like that's actually pretty ridiculous progress. If anyone actually
I'm
makes
like,
that progress,
that person
let
should
me
be
know.
okay with it. Yeah.
That's probably not a good.
But you
good
mean like when
comparison.
they're going week to week? It's like no, but go further back.
Yeah,
Go.
and it's hard, but it's hard to notice, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and like there's an analogy of like the toilet paper analogy, where if you have a roll of toilet paper and you just pulled one strip off per day, you know, after 30 days, the roll wouldn't look that different. But then you get past that and you
Right,
keep doing
suddenly you
the
realize,
action
yeah.
of pulling the strip off, and you're like, wow, that roll's a lot smaller,
Yeah.
right? And changes are very, very hard to notice, and that's why I tend to encourage people to look at the direction they're trending in versus like the day-to-day fluctuations, because those are always going to be there. Like I fluctuate 3 to 5 pounds depending on the day, and that's normal, right? And you know, and that will affect how lean you look and how you feel, and even your performance in the gym. or you can let it do that, or you can say, you know what, it's just a blip on the
life,
radar.
yeah.
In the grand overall scheme of things, I'm still making progress. Because if you look at like long-term, weight loss charts that are successful, like that have done it sustainably, not like a crash diet or like a Biggest Loser type situation, you'll see it's like the stock market. It's not like consistently up or consistently down. It's like, okay, you went down a little bit, and then maybe you had a birthday party, and then you went down again, and you had vacation, and whatever your life events were, or maybe you weren't on track for this amount of time, and you kind of maintained, and then you kept going down, right?
That's a really good point.
And the same goes with strength gains. Like if we all just could walk in the gym and throw 5 pounds in the bar every single time we lifted, like if you did that for your hip thrust, right, and you'd be hip thrusting 1,000 pounds by now, your butt would have its own zip code, and but that's just not realistic. I'd be deadlifting thousands of pounds by now, but I'm not, right? And so we have to understand that progress as a metric and whatever you're measuring it is not linear, and you have to find some way to enjoy the process and to have a zoom out and have a bird's eye view of how well you're actually doing. Because especially if you're really critical
I imagine
of yourself.
that becomes pretty hard when because obviously I've started for my back, now I'm getting into this realm of like pushing myself, but there's going to be plateaus, and I'm sure that can be mentally challenging in and of itself to be like, why can't I progress anymore? Do you feel like, I'm just wondering about people who train a lot. Like, does that become a problem for people? Because it's hard to know, like, well, this is the stage I want to be at, and then I'm okay to never have progress again and just maintain it. Right?
Yeah.
I see.
Like, I've never had to think about that because I'm just
you're
starting
still
the
very
journey.
early.
But at some point,
Drag him.
You're still kidding. You're still very. It's not a bad thing. It just means
Try your nib.
but I'm wondering, like, because you've trained for a long time and you've worked with so many people.
That is interesting to be like, I actually am done. Like, I'm gonna keep doing this way,
or I have to keep working just as hard for no more progress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I mean, there's a few different points to that. One is, I think the people who have the longest amount of success or consistency with, we'll use weightlifting as the example, are the ones where it's a part of like who you are, and you're no longer doing it expressly for the gains that you once saw. You're doing it because it's part of your
lifestyle.
I am Paul, and I go to the gym because
I
I find it valuable for X number of Y reasons.
I like it. Yeah.
And it makes you feel good. And I feel like without it, I feel not so good, or maybe empty, whatever. Versus someone who at the beginning who's like, I need to have ways of measuring my progress in order to stick with it. Because if I don't see progress, well, guess what? I'm liking it.
Motivation zero. Yeah.
Like, why am I even doing this if I'm not seeing an RO, like return on my investment?
Yeah.
So there's that portion of it. But then going, a little bit deeper, like if you look at anyone who's a master in their craft, right? Like I'll use the field of like filmmaking, for example. I have a colleague who his wife writes film scores. And the question came up of like, how do you top like when you win an Oscar? Like, what do you do after? Are you just done?
Is that your peak and you should
like
just stop?
I'm just gonna stop working?
Yeah.
It's like, no, because
Golden Globe.
What's the next one?
Critics' Choice Award.
It's like, what will keep you going? Well, it's like a commitment to the process and the work.
Yeah.
And trying to always just do good work.
Yeah.
Whether or not it ends up being an Oscar worthy or not. And I think that, again, that's a mindset that gets developed over time. It's not something I talk about with people who are brand new, because in the beginning they already have enough stuff to think about. And I have very clear indicators, like, you're making great progress. And literally for a beginner, like, this is the funny thing, is you can do almost anything. And like get stronger and see progress. And that's where, like, if you look at exercise science studies, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, they put on 40 kilos to their squat in 8 weeks, but they were also untrained males. And I'm like, that's super common.
Right. To be able
where
to
like you could
like,
literally have them squat any which way and they probably would have gained 40 kilos.
Right.
So I'm more concerned when you're talking about progress long term, take someone who's experienced, did they get better?
Right.
Because then you have more credibility as far as your methods that you
harder
use
to work through
versus like throwing like, I could have this beginner squat 5x5 and this beginner squat 5x10 and this beginner do air squats and they likely all get stronger.
Right. Yeah. Just
cool.
because when you start, you have
you're
nowhere to
brand
go
new.
but up.
Your body's like, give me all the weights.
Yeah. Huh.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other questions? Personal questions? Things you need to know
Oh my
before
God.
Paul goes?
No, I guess I don't, but I'm definitely like just need to rein in my farts. That was good on that.
Yeah,
Some
that-
bananas.
Priority number 1, please.
No, I need to know. I just needed to know that bodybuilding was just like what it was. I just needed to know that. I just needed to know it was kind of what I thought it was, and it's just like that's insane to me.
Yeah. Paul, do you have anything else that's on your mind about whether it comes to bodybuilding or health and fitness and exercise?
Well, I think you mentioned one thing, which was like advice for people
Yeah, true.
like starting out, like
Yeah.
they've never done this before, right? Speaking to you, not in my Arnold accent. So all I would say is that everyone you see in the gym, everyone you see doing this stuff was a beginner at one point in time, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember stepping in the gym and being like, I thought the smallest guy in there, and seeing people who are lifting way more than me and being like, wow, like, okay, do I even deserve to be in this place? But over time you come to learn that like, well, listen, everyone has their story and everyone started somewhere, right? And if you can find something you can stick with, right? Something that makes you feel good, something that gives you a very tangible measures of progress, or just makes you feel better mentally, like whatever your motivations are for getting into fitness, like that's what matters. And it's hard to avoid or ignore all the other reasons that people say you should be doing this for,
Right.
when maybe they don't matter to you that much.
Yeah.
So I would say find your why. Like, why do I want to lift weights? Do I want to be stronger? Do I want to take care of my parents as they get older? Do I want to just be more physically capable of my job? Do I want my back or insert body part here to hurt less? Like, really focusing on that, because that's what's going to keep you going, when it's not as easy, right? And when it starts to get more challenging, or when you get up in the morning, you don't want to go to the gym, remembering your why is like super important. And then if you have the means to, and you have the resources, hiring a coach or getting someone to help with some aspect of this stuff that you don't quite understand. And I fully empathize with people. Like, there's a lot of information out there. It's really hard to sort through and be like, well, what is the path for me? And going back to that beginner point I made earlier, you can literally do anything and see progress.
That's a good way.
So like, you can reframe that. Like, there's so much out there, but I literally just have to start.
do one of them.
Like, you could literally just go in, you could start doing bodyweight exercise at home and likely feel better about that, right? And then, coaching or assistance is helpful, but I will be the first to say not necessary or even reasonable for people to look for. And, this is where YouTube and there are other resources that are really good. But I mean, again, the biggest thing is just being consistent. Like, forget the, 5 years from now where you want to be, just focus on being consistent day to day, right? And the nice thing about, starting something like this is that you tend to see positive benefits to the rest of your life in terms of like other behaviors that go along with it. So like, you start working out and maybe you start making better eating choices. Right. And maybe you start to try to sleep a bit more because you're like, wow, I feel way better during my workouts when I sleep more.
Or you're
versus
tired.
when
You're like finally tired.
versus when I don't. And then again, like minimum effective dose, going back to that other study you said, like what's important is that you're doing it, not how much you're doing. Right. So even if it's just 30 minutes, that's 30 minutes that you weren't doing a week ago when you didn't start.
Yeah.
And you compound that over time and you can see some pretty awesome things happen. So
That's really good advice. And I would just add, like, as somebody who was like really afraid of the gym for a long time, like, I don't know what trauma happened to me when I was like a gay kid in high school or
Being
something.
gay.
Yeah, literally. But like now as an adult, and I obviously am like still new to this, but I do feel like at least the gym environments I've been in have been really supportive and kind and nice. And I haven't felt like, maybe bigger gyms are harder because there's so many people. Your brain can be like, am I being judged?
Yeah.
But like, we go to a relatively like smaller gym where you train me, and I just feel like everyone's so nice and supportive, and my fear was unfounded for most of the scenarios I've been in. And I just think that's for a lot of people, it's like scary to be in a
what
gym.
if other people are watching me?
Yeah, and like kind of judging me and think I'm stupid and all that. So,
and like that is a real fear, right? In a lot of cases, why are there mirrors in the gym? So people can look at themselves,
right? Yeah,
and not
no
care about anyone else.
He always thinks people are more watching him. I'm like, no one's
constantly.
looking at you.
Yeah, no, the gym it tends
everyone's
to
looking
be.
at
No, sorry, not like that. Not like that. I mean, like, you think people are looking at you in a bad way. And I'm like, no one's
it's
looking at you in a
called
bad way.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different issue, a different episode.
I have the opposite. I'm like, please look at my ass. Look at my ass as I do the squat. Look at my ass.
Most people are too busy focusing on themselves.
Yeah, they
and
are.
rightfully so. What you're doing is
No, it's so
intensive
funny.
and does require your attention, right?
Sometimes I like zoom out at like me in the mirror like lifting weights, like, and I'm like, oh my god, like
Okay.
this is so embarrassing because I'm literally like red in the face, like
Right,
screaming,
trying
like making
so
my
hard.
biceps go up, and I'm like staring at myself.
See, different motivations.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Paul, where can people like find you online or in person, or what can they do to learn more about you?
Yeah. Well, I'm again as a trainer. If you're worried about privacy on the internet, you're probably in the wrong field. So I'm very easy to find. I'm at Paul_Hynes on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Although it's probably harder to find me on there because of like filters and stuff. And there's a lot
Paul
of Paul
Hynes.
There's a lot of Paul Hynes. Yeah, you can put the
Paul
ta-
underscore Hynes, is that
the
what you
tag.
said?
Yeah.
Paul
You put the
underscore
tag in the show notes as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Actually, sorry, it's Paul.Hynes.
Okay.
See, I don't even know my own Instagram.
Okay, careful.
At Paul.Hynes. Is that a Y or is that-
Hynes.
There we go.
Yeah. And I have a website, www.hynesperformance.ca. And I work out of the Parkdale area and the downtown core. And I work with all types of folks. So don't think that like it's only for athletes or only for powerlifters or, you know,
It's for little wimps like me too.
it's for everyone. Like training and getting stronger and noticing physical benefits and like physical development, I firmly believe is for everyone. It's something that maybe you didn't have an opportunity to do in school or you never felt you belonged
true.
with it. But like, guess what? If you're an adult now, you can forge your own path and write a new chapter in your story. And I've seen some pretty amazing changes happen from just people being like, you know what? I'm going to try that thing again that I didn't have a good experience with first.
Amazing.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for coming on the pod.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Wow, I can't. You're welcome.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you in the gym, gains, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.